Once there was a girl, and her name was Kimberly Kellogg. She was a well-nourished, upper-middle-class 12-year-old girl, overall rather ordinary in nature. She lived with her parents in a good suburb of a good American city. She was a happy girl who went to school every day, just like her peers. In the evenings, she came home from school, her parents came home from work, and they ate dinner together as a family. Her parents were happy that she was ordinary, although not too ordinary, as she hadn't yet turned into an insolent, shoplifting, purge-dieting, binge-drinking nightmare, like all the other girls in the neighborhood. Every day, they counted their blessings. One night, Kimberly was watching a horror movie with her parents. It was one about outer space aliens invading the suburbs. Suburbs that bore striking resemblance to the ones that she called home. The movie itself was made in cinema verite style, so that the naturalistic and provocative camera work made the everyday world seem more charged and real. Just like the ownerless black nylon backpack that Kimberly abandoned in a noisy and overcrowded railway station. Halfway through the horror movie, a scene showed a family inside their house. They had been hearing funny noises for quite some time, so they decided to go to start from window to window to see where the noises had been coming from and what they might be. After a thorough search resulting in nothing much, the family stood in front of the living room window for a moment, admiring the garden. Suddenly, a gigantic, mean alien with tentacles and fangs and a massive cranium jumped in front of them and spat blood and venom and human body parts onto the window pane. Kimberly began screaming and couldn't stop. In the end, her parents had to give her some Valium they'd been saving for an upcoming holiday flight, and still, she spent the rest of the evening in her bed with her curtains tightly closed. Through the walls, she could hear her parents fighting over whose idea it had been to let a 12-year-old girl watch an R-rated horror movie.
Before he went to bed that night, Kimberly's father came up to see how she was doing and said, "Let's open the curtains and let in some fresh air, young lady." Kimberly freaked out again. It took her father some minutes to make the connection between the curtains, the windows, and the monster. And by then, Kimberly was so upset she ended up spending the night sleeping in her parents' room, the blind drawn. The next morning, Kimberly was fine again, until she remembered the monster. She froze, realizing that there were windows everywhere and monster could appear at any one of them at any time. She wheeled herself out of the house and onto the bus, and that was okay, because it was moving and raised above the ground, until she realized that an alien could be on the bus's roof. At school, she spent the day trying not to look out the classroom windows. During last period of the day, science, one of her classmates, Luke, said, "Kimberly, come over here. There is this cool eye perception thing I want to show you." "What does that mean?" "It's to test your eyes to see what you notice more, motion or color. It's fun." Kimberly was glad to have something to take her mind off the aliens, so she went to sit beside Luke. Luke said, "What you do is stare at this image really intensely." On the screen was a picture of a boring middle-class living room. Let your eyes relax and let your body relax, and the things in this room will change slightly. Sofa may change color a bit. The image is going to change very slowly. Tell me what changes you notice, color or shape or motion or whatever. So Kimberly sat there and let her body relax. For the first time since her horror movie, she stared at the picture and imagined how much it matched her own family.
She imagined herself being in the room and feeling safe and happy when all of a sudden the screen cut to a full-size screaming vampire face. Fangs dripping blood, eyes full of murderous, blood-sucking rage. All of a sudden, Kimberly went totally insane and nobody knew what to do. Finally, her teacher and a few of the bigger kids were able to drag her to the nurse's office, where she was forced to sign several waiver forms and show proof of her family's fully paid, up-to-date medical coverage before she was given a rich and delicious syringe load of diluted. Still, the only reason Kimberly didn't flip out further was because the nurse's office had no windows and she felt slightly safe there. But she dreaded the fact that she would have to leave the room and walk down the windowed hallway and out a door into a car with windows. Her mother had been called, and then into a house that had 27 windows as well as one chimney and 3 ventilation holes for the dryer and the bathroom showers. The drive home was traumatic. Once inside the house, Kimberly was unable to leave her mother even for a second. That night, her parents tried reasoning with her, but the harder they tried, the more anxious she became. At 2 a.m, they gave her the remaining 8 milligrams of Valium and decided to see if everything would be better in the morning. It wasn't. It was much worse. A Valium hangover amplified every misfiring neuron in their daughter's brain. Kimberly, teeth chattering, crept inside the linen closet and shut the door. "We have to take her to a doctor," said her father. "Can you get the day off?" "Nope. Today's our annual end-of-season Winnebago blowout. Can't you take the day off?" "Fine. Come on, Pumpkin," Kimberly's dad said. "Get dressed and let's go see if we can make these spooky things go away." They drove to the clinic with Kimberly crouched in the well of the front passenger seat, and at the clinic they saw Dr. Marlborough.
"Sedatives won't work," he said. "Nothing will work. A horrific lifelong phobia has been created. The most we can hope for is that fear will dwindle with time and become manageable. Usually the decay rate for young people traumatized by the wrong movie at the wrong time is 6 weeks. But the aftershocks linger forever." "What type of quack are you?" Kimberly's dad said. "Language, Mr. Kellogg, goodbye." Angry, Kimberly's father took his daughter to another doctor, who he'd heard would write anyone a prescription for anything. Kimberly spent the next month in a velvet fog. Then the prescription ran out. And when her parents went to renew it, they learned that the pill doctor had fled to Florida to avoid multiple malpractice charges. All the other doctors in town were off duty watching golf marathons on TV. An unsedated Kimberly returned to her full senses. She was yet again horrified by the world. But while Kimberly had been in her fog, spring had turned into summer. Kimberly's mother had an idea. "Why don't you sleep outside on the lawn?" "No windows there." She had a point. That night, Kimberly slept in the back gardens, midway between the house and the fence. "Well, Einstein," said her father to her mother, "glad to see something works. She can't be living on sedatives forever." With a 360-degree view all around her, sleep came quickly to Kimberly. The next morning, she jerked awake, filled with fear. Then realized where she was and relaxed. This went on for a month, during which time she stayed inside, going inside only when it was absolutely necessary. The weather was good, and so was life. Then, one morning, she woke up to see 2 men dressed like politicians coming through the carport. They approached the side door and rang the doorbell. Kimberly's mother answered it and let them in.
As quietly as she could, Kimberly crept up to the house. She snuck from window to window, looking inside, and as she did, she discovered that windows are perfectly fine if you're on the outside looking in. Finally, she came to the living room window. She looked in to see her parents kneeling in front of the men, whose heads were opening up like tin can lids. Jellyfish tentacles emerged and wrapped themselves over her parents' skulls. After 30 seconds, the tentacles retreated and went back inside the men's heads, and the heads snapped shut. The creatures pulled dog leashes from their back pockets, which they attached to Kimberly's parents, then led them out the front door, down the driveway, and onto the road, where the other aliens were busy rounding up the neighbors. One might wish that Kimberly did a brave thing and fetched the loaded Colt from her father's bedside drawer and tried to rescue her parents. Or one might wish that Kimberly ran after her parents in a vain effort to save them and, in the process, became a house pet too. But instead, Kimberly looked at her parents' house, which now belonged to her. She went in the front door, threw open all the windows, let fresh air inside, and sang, "The aliens have come, and now they're gone." She looked around the empty house. "And all of this is mine now. Mine, mine, mine." She went into the kitchen and found a bottle of Windex, and went from room to room, cleaning all the windows one by one.